Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Also too, before we get into the swing analysis, besides hitting the top of the ball, what are we
Hmm.
looking at with Barry Bonds and his swing attributes? Lower body, upper body. What does he do really, really well? I don't think he does many things bad or um, things that would hurt his swing. What does he do really, really well? Upper body, lower body.
Well, what's interesting is he has a huge hitch. So if
Mhm.
somebody, and we'll see it, if there was a kid that had a hitch like his today, people would immediately say, oh, you can't hit that way. You
Mhm.
have to start your hands here. I'm the person that says, okay, you have a hitch. It's probably in your DNA. I'm not sure we can get that out. And then the player will look at me and say, yeah, I've had coaches try to do it. It's just there. So I always say, okay, well, let's figure out how we could use it and just make sure your hands get to the proper launch position. So one thing we're going to learn from Barry is how great he is at timing his hitch. I mean, there's been amazing hitters with hitches. Dating back to like Mel Ott had a big hitch. Ted Williams had a hand hitch. Uh, David Ortiz a little bit more recently has a hand hitch. Obviously Bonds does. I can't think of players today. I know there's some out there with kind of big rhythm, but uh, it's something that it doesn't mean anything. It's rhythm and how it gets you going. So, one thing is his hand hitch. Number two is his back foot actually doesn't travel forward very much. He doesn't get super wide with his stride.
Mhm.
He rotates fast and hard. Uh, so he doesn't have a huge linear or forward weight shift at all. He stays in place, uh, which is great for him. He could do that. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody's as strong as he is to be able to create that much energy without much of. He still had a weight shift, but it's less noticeable. You'll see his foot borderline sometimes go back, so we'll be able to see that. And then as far as his hands are concerned, just amazing hands. He choked up a lot on the bat, like he wanted to feel his hand, and he was big on making sure that bat didn't slip.
Mhm.
He had strong hands. His top hand was palm up for a really, really long time.
Oh, can you go into the hitch one more time with him, and we'll get into it again during the swing analysis. But
Yeah,
what do you think that hitch does for his swing and just for his hands in general?
it really just gets him going.
Mhm.
It's not moving from a standstill, so it gets his rhythm going. His hitch goes with his front foot, so they kind of dance together. So it's not stagnant. It's kind of, he hitches down and kind of brings his foot up, and then as his foot goes down, his hands come back up, and it's all rhythm and timing. The hitch, I don't think the hitch does anything to make him swing harder or faster or more efficient. It simply gets him going so he's not late, because if you're late with a hitch, you'll never get your hands back up and you won't be
Yeah.
successful. So it forces you to kind of get that stride going,
Mhm.
which is really the most important thing. I was doing voiceovers for my online academy members, and I always time them. How long does your rhythm take? Where's your front foot? Where's the ball? Where are your hands? When your front foot hits the ground. And I have a high school kid that just has made leaps and bounds in the last 6 weeks or so. And his rhythm was so nice and smooth and easy. It was a full second, his rhythm, this last video, and he was hitting line drives all over the place because it was giving himself a chance. So with this stride and this rhythm and this hitch that he had, essentially it forced him to move a little bit earlier and
Mhm.
be a little bit more controlled, so he probably wasn't as jumpy. Doesn't mean it's for everyone, but I never take hitches away from people, because usually there's a reason they do it. They're comfortable with that move, and trying to take it out makes them very uncomfortable.
Right.
And as a hitter, if you're uncomfortable, you're already behind the eight ball.
You've talked about it before. Hitters way back when playing in, we're talking about the Ted Williams era,
Yeah, and
Babe Ruth,
before,
they used
yeah,
to do that hitch because their bats, they would have to get their hands going
so
because
big,
their bats were so big. And you're exactly right.
right?
And they were so large and so heavy. I don't think Barry Bonds' bat was all that heavy and large. He
Uh-uh.
just did it to get his hands going.
Yeah.
He did his entire career too, by the way. It wasn't something that he just learned later on.
And Barry grew up in clubhouses.
Right.
I mean, he was growing up with his dad in the clubhouse, and he was using those big bats probably when he was a kid that his dad had laying around, or other players that were on the team. Obviously, Willie Mays, his godfather, I think. So, I mean, he was around pretty amazing players his whole life, and I think that's probably where his mental mindset, a lot of that came from. His dad was a big leaguer for a long time and talked him through at bats, the mental side of hitting. but I think he also, there was no situation too big for him, because as a 8-year-old kid, he was in big league stadiums all the time. And that's a lot of that you see nowadays when guys get brought up, the guys that are sons of major league players. It's like, oh, great, I'm in the big leagues now. Yeah, the locker room's a little bigger, but I've been here before, versus somebody that's never been there and never been. All of a sudden they get brought up and then they struggle for a long time, because it's like culture shock, when you get to the big leagues. So I'm sure that helped him quite a bit, like it helped Griffey.